All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're talking about Algebra 2 Skills J14 and J15. This is writing equations of quadratic polynomials. So in case you're curious, quadratic, remember, is where we see a function that has x squared in it, and its shape is a parabola. It's either an up parabola or a down parabola. And we're going to be writing equations given the zeros. The zeros of a function, also known as the roots of a function, are the x-intercepts, where the graph crosses the x-axis. So many times there are two zeros or two roots. And if we have those two roots, then it's actually really, really easy to write an equation. We're also going to write an equation of the quadratic polynomial given a vertex and another point. Now, a vertex, if you have a parabola, the vertex is the very lowest point on the graph or the very highest point on the graph. It is that vertex point where it changes from going either uphill to downhill, it changes there, or maybe downhill to uphill, so decreasing to increasing. So if you're given a vertex and some other point on the graph, then you can also write the equation. And so you want to pay attention when you're doing these skills today of what form they want your answer in. So first of all, they're going to say write an equation in standard form. Standard form is where you've got all your ducks in a row. Everything is multiplied out, and we've got our leading term. And this is called the leading coefficient. And if they tell you that they have a leading coefficient of 1, then they're telling you that A is equal to 1. So a lot of your problems today, they're telling you that A is equal to 1. But everything is multiplied together. All of our ducks are in a row. Ax squared plus bx plus c. And that's how they believe standard form is in IXL. And we have intercept form. If you're given the roots or the zeros of the parabola, then say this 0 was -2 and this 0 was maybe x equals 3. If you know that x equals 3, you can convert it back into bubble form. And we have done this before. You just have to push that 3 back over to the other side. It becomes x minus 3. And that -2 becomes x minus a -2, which is going to change the sign for you. We also have vertex form. Again, pay attention. They're going to ask for stuff in vertex form. This is vertex form. A times the quantity x minus h squared plus k. And again, we've done this form before. And they're going to give you a vertex, which is very nice. The vertex is always going to go in place of the h value and the k value. And then if they give you a point, you're going to put the point in place of x, and f of x is really just the same as a y. So you're going to plug your ordered pair, whatever your x and your y happen to be, when they give you a point. You'll plug in for x and y. That's going to allow you to figure out what k is to write your equation in vertex form. So let's see how all of that works. And again, we have done all of this before, so if you have your notes, you can look back. We've done it a lot. This was back in first semester. So example 1, write the equation of the quadratic function in standard form with a lead coefficient of 1. So again, they're telling us that we have a leading coefficient of 1. They're telling us that the a value is 1, and that's really, really, really important information for us. But they're giving us the zeros of -9 and 7. And so what that would mean, if you were to draw a picture, is that our parabola is crossing the axis at -9, and it's crossing the axis at 7. And I don't know if this is an up parabola or a down parabola, but since my coefficient is a 1, it's positive. I'm assuming that it's an upward-facing parabola. But if we know that those x-intercepts or those zeros are -9 and 7, then I can go ahead and just convert them back into bubbles. if we knew that x equals -9 was one of the zeros, then I just get to move that -9 back over to bubble form, and it becomes x plus 9. And if it was x equals 7, then I move that 7 back over to its bubble form. And to move it, we subtract it, so it becomes x minus 7. And you can see how those signs change. And from here, so that's the setup. All we have to do is multiply this out, and then it will be in standard form if we put it in order. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute first times first. X times x is x squared. The outside, x times -7 is -7x. 9 times x is positive 9x. And 9 times -7 is -63. And then I can add my like terms together. So I have an x squared in front. It has a 1 already. It's a 1 there. You don't need to write the 1. -7 plus 9 is a positive 2x minus 63. I believe in IXL it's going to give you a little f of x equals, and then the bubble, the little answer field, you just have to type in x squared plus 2x minus 63. And for all of these problems, they want your variable to be x. So just use x, kind of nice. All right. Oh, this is a mistake. Given roots of, sorry, let's make it -6 and +6. I don't know why I did that, but we'll pretend. So -6 and +6. Imagining my parabola here is crossing the x-axis at -6 and +6. And again, it's a opening up parabola. If I know that x equals -6, moving that over, we're going to do, it turns into a positive 6 in bubble form. And if we're at x equals 6, moving that over would become x minus 6. So change those signs. It'll be real nice. Then we can just multiply our bubbles together. X times x is x squared. X times -6 is -6x. 6 times x is positive 6x. And 6 times -6 is -36. Can combine like terms. X squared, -6x and positive 6x is 0. That goes away. That's nice. I'm going to get minus 36. And so that's y equals x squared minus 36, or f of x equals same thing. It's just fancy notation. So you'll notice that these are in standard form now. D, standard form, ax squared plus bx plus c. And so when you multiply them together, we're going to end up in standard form. Not hard to do there. Hopefully you remember that. Example 2, write the equation of the parabola in vertex form. Vertex form. So vertex form is, I'm going to write it up here, y equals a times the quantity x minus h, quantity squared, plus k. Don't forget the quantity squared in your answer. You need it. So when they give me a vertex and a point, and I'm using vertex form, it's really important for me to understand that the vertex is the h and the k. So I'm going to plug those numbers in for h and k. My point is the x and the y, and I'm going to plug in those numbers for x and y. And if I do that correctly, then I just have to work out so that I can solve for the a value. So let's see how that works. I'm going to go ahead and just write down my model so that we're all clear where things are going. All right, so I'm going to put in place of the y a 7, so 7. A we need to solve for. In place of the x, we're putting in -12. Minus, and in place of the h, I'm plugging in 0. Don't forget the quantity squared. In place of the k, I'm putting in a -5. Now, this is the hard part. Take your time. Use your calculator here. You can plug this whole thing here in your calculator if you wanted to. I have a times the quantity -12 minus 0 is -12. and that is being squared. Negative 12 times negative 12 is positive 144. This is going to be 144 times A. And then I'm going to go ahead and solve for A. So I'm going to add 5 to the other side. That's going to give me 12 equals 144A. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide by the 144. So I get A all by itself. And again, calculator, if you don't know the answer to this, you can use your calculator. No one will judge you, especially because no one is there. Math, frac, you have that capability of converting to a fraction. That's going to reduce to 1 over 12. Make sure you reduce, reduce, reduce. So that's your A value. And so to write our equation, y equals, I believe this is the answer field. We would plug in our A, 1/12 quantity, and then we have x minus the h that they gave us, so minus 0. I don't think I need to write that, but I maybe could plug it in. Quantity squared, and then plus the k, plus a negative 5 or just minus 5. So you could write 1/12, turns out to be just x squared minus 5. There's a little fraction button in IXL when you have a fraction you can use. It always needs to be reduced, so make sure you reduce those fractions. Use your calculators. Oh, and here's a real fun one. Again, I'm going to use my calculator as much as possible. So vertex form, y equals a times the quantity x minus h squared plus k. And the vertex always goes in place of the h and the k, and the point always goes in place of x and y. So in place of y, I'm going to put 57 over 8. Solving for a, in place of the x, we're plugging in a 3. We have a minus sign. And then we have, in place of the h, a negative 6. So it's minus a negative 6. So when you do that, be very, very careful. Don't forget that you've got to square all that stuff. And then plus the k, plus a negative 3 is just a negative 3. So again, this minus a negative, again, you can use your calculator, 3 minus a negative 6 to figure out what's inside those parentheses is 9. Minus a negative turns to plus. And then this is 9 being squared. So 9 squared is 81. That turns out to be 81 times a. Minus 3 is 57 over 8. And I'm solving for a, so I'm going to go ahead and add 3. And woo, don't like doing that. So I'm going to go to my trusty rusty calculator here, and I'm going to type in 57 over 8 plus 3. Here's crazy decimal, so I'm going to math frac that, convert it to a fraction. I get 81 over 8. And that's going to be equal to 81a. Well, that's kind of nice. So now if I need to get a by itself, I'm going to go ahead and I don't like dividing by 81 when I have a fraction here. So I'm actually going to do sort of something sneaky so that you can see the math here. And instead of dividing by 81, I can actually multiply by the reciprocal. So I'm going to multiply by 1 over 81. That's my dyslexia sneaking in there. 1 over 81 is the same as division. So those 81s cancel, and so do these 81s. We end up with 1/8. So that's really, really nice. You can also do it on your calculator. Since we had to divide by 81, we already had the answer here. So I'm just going to put divide by 81. And you'll notice that it takes the answer and is dividing it by 81. And it reduces itself to 1 over 81. How cool is that? 1 over 8 equals a. Now that's not the answer they're looking for. You need to write it in vertex form. Y equals, plug in your a value. You need an x in there, minus a negative 6. Minus the negative 6 turns to plus. And you're going to have to simplify that because it won't like it otherwise. And then minus the 3. So watch those anytime you have the double negatives, okay? It's always positive. All right, ladies and gentlemen, hopefully that is enough help. Remember, you can use your calculators, and these are the forms you're going to need. And you should be able to do J14 and J15. And please remember, office hours are an option if you're running into a lot of trouble. I have office hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And you can just go to Clever and click on the link in my page, in my A Good Now's page. There's a link in Clever, and you can pop in and ask me some questions, and I can help you out whenever you need. Have a nice day, guys.